Evil Pixel.
It's been repeatedly discussed that the Nintendo 64 lacked what its predecessors innovated on so well, and that is RPGs. With the Sony PlayStation making its debut in 1994, boasting 3D polygonal graphics and ditching the cartridges for a disc platform to fit more memory, it definitely put the PlayStation as more desirable console for the RPG lovers. Now, as stated previously, even though the Nintendo 64 is a beloved console that has and continues to be loved by many fans of all ages, the Nintendo 64 just did not have very many RPGs. Notice I said not very many, as many people claim that the Nintendo 64 only had one real RPG, and that being Quest 64, which is simply not true. With games such as Gauntlet Legends, Ogre Battle 64, and of course Paper Mario, the genre is definitely present with the Nintendo 64. But I think that Quest 64's disappointment was so drastic that it pretty much left a bad taste in every gamer's mouth. All I saw growing up was the bad reviews for Quest 64, but I digress. I'm not here to talk about Quest 64, but rather a sequel planned for the game that was supposed to address a few of the criticism that the original game received. The game was known as Quest 64 2 by gamers. Now I know that sounds kinda dumb, but the only reason people gave it that title is because the game was never actually given one. You see, the game got cancelled very early into development, and the only reason why the public ever knew about it was through a small German Nintendo magazine called Nintendo Fun Vision. Now before I go any deeper, I want to address Quest 64's title in other regions, which in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand is Holy Magic Century. Now I have no idea why they chose such a weird name, but I thought I'd mention it since a lot of people know it by that title. Now I want to give a huge shout out once again to my good friends at Unseen64 for being able to get scans of a few of the images shown on this German magazine, as I've been trying to find scans of this magazine with no success at all. So through 1998's issue number 8 of Nintendo Fun Vision magazine, we are given our first details of the Quest 64 sequel title that was in development at the time. The artwork shown in the article are the only known images to exist of the Quest 64 sequel. Now according to the article, the game was being developed by Imagineer, the developers of the first Quest 64. The main change the sequel will have implemented would be the option to choose between a male and a female protagonist, the male being named Leon, who is a magician, and Sophia, a swordswoman. You were also given a helper throughout the game known as the Guardian, who served different purposes throughout the game, as both a vehicle to get around quicker and also as a resource in battle. Thanks to this magazine's article, we also got a good description of the game's background story. The game would have taken place 100 years after the original Quest 64 left off, in a kingdom called Celtland, ruled by a king named Tibelius. Now one day, Tibelius dies and barbarians attempt to overthrow the cities, until an evil conqueror by the name of Julius stops him and assumes power. Now focusing on the main characters, the male protagonist Leon is a 10-year-old boy who lives with his stepfather in an island called Iodil. Leon's stepfather is what they call a spirit slayer, who have the ability to wield magical powers, as was the legendary Brian, who was the protagonist from the first Quest 64 game. Now one day, Leon's stepfather, Shmian, goes missing. Leon decides to try and find him by journeying to where the Spirit Slayers gather. He then finds Brian, the original protagonist, and obtains the ability to wield magic. The antagonist Julius hears of Leon's abilities and sends his troops after him. Leon gets caught and later taken aboard Julius' ship, where he meets Sophia, the swordswoman, who is being forced to do Julius' dirty work. We later find out Sophia also received her magical powers through Brian. Now the game begins when the ship crashes and the two are separated. It isn't known by the characters themselves, but the two have the same goal in mind, to stop Julius. Now it's during this time that the players get to choose between the two playable characters, Leon or Sophia. Leon primarily using magical powers as his primary attack, while Sophia however wields a close-range sword and is considered a dual ace. Now similar to Navi from Ocarina of Time, both protagonists would have had companions as stated previously, which travel alongside them to assist throughout their journey. Now it wasn't clear who or what this companion was, but what is known from the article is that the player would have at least been able to ride the said companion. The last thing that's able to be read from this article is that the game would have focused heavily on currency and purchasing items. It isn't exactly clear what that means or what the aspect is, but if I can take a guess, I'm sure it probably pertains to possibly crafting or mixing items to create other things. Now sadly, that's most of what could be retrieved from this article, other than small bits of non-story related things, such as that the game was said to take approximately 30 hours to complete. Now, the reason why the Quest 64 sequel got cancelled was primarily due to the financial issues that Imagineer was going through, which eventually led to them being absorbed by their subsidiaries, and then became known as Rocket Company. Now unfortunately, Quest 64 2 wasn't the only game by Imagineers that got cancelled during that time due to their financial issues, but perhaps we'll talk about that in another video. Now an interesting fact to mention is that Imagineer went ahead and released not one, but two sort of add-on games to the Quest 64 series in the form of Game Boy Color games, by the names of Quest Brian's Journey, which in Japan is known as Elemental Tale Jack's Great Adventure Satan's Counterattack. The hell? And the other one was a lackluster puzzle game titled Quest Fantasy Challenge. And honestly, both of these games are just awful. But I figured I'd share with you guys just for series relevancy. And perhaps someone will mention it in the comments below. Now, as many may know, Quest 64 continued and garnered a cult following that has sprung into a dedicated fan base and an active speedrunning community as well. So hopefully one day someone with more information on this sequel would come forward and give us more insight as to what this game actually consisted of. Now once again, as stated previously, I've tried my best to locate this German Nintendo magazine, Nintendo Funvision issue number 8, or even just the article, but I've come up short with my findings. So if anyone watching this video has it or comes across it, please get in contact with us, because I would really just like to get a closer look at this article and see if we can decipher more of it. But unfortunately, that is all we know of the Quest 64 sequel. Thank you guys for watching. Check out some of our other videos if you'd like. Don't forget to check out our Twitch. Hit us up on Twitter if you want to know the next time we're live, or check out our Discord as well if you want to share any findings or talk about unreleased games or find out where we're going live. And I'll catch you all next time.